N'Keal Harry was an absolute steal at 32. What are you guys talking about? Forget Tom Brady's passing numbers. He's the GOAT because he was the best punter in the NFL. I take Johnny Hecker over Patrick Mahomes to be my quarterback any day.
Welcome to the No Punt Intended Sportscast with your host, Parody 07.
Welcome to the No Punt Intended Sportscast. We finally picked a name. I'm here with the DAWGS.
Hey.
We got LB returning. We got the Hound returning, and we've got, I know we're in freaking August now, and we still haven't talked about the draft. I've obviously been itching to talk about the draft because I knocked it out of the park, but we'll save that for later. Just overall, we'll start with LB and then we'll go to Hound. Just your initial thoughts, guys, on what you thought of your particular team's draft. Let's just hear what you have to say.
Yeah, so last time we talked, I was big on CJ Stroud only because of the frame and size. Obviously, Bryce Young is superbly talented. So there was never a talent issue, obviously. I was just concerned about his longevity and durability. As you know, Carolina drafted him 1 overall, so pulling for him. Hopefully the O-line will hold up for him. I thought given the picks Carolina had to trade away, not only to the Bears, but through the other teams the last season or two, I think they made a fairly good draft. I like their second-round pick as well, Jonathan Mingo, middle wide receiver from Ole Miss. He's 6'2", 220 pounds. I think he's going to be a great addition. Hopefully get him in the lineup, and he can get some serious reps. And then we just kind of added depth all around. We added a edge guy from Oregon, DJ Johnson. We added another guard from NC State who played along Ike Ekwomu when we drafted him last year, not first overall, but in the first round.
I didn't
even.
And then we
added a safety from Florida State, J.B. Robinson. So overall, I'm excited to see how those guys shake out, and I'm really pulling for them. I think it's gonna be an interesting season.
Cool. Hound, what do you think?
Well, so the Chiefs went in with a lot of different draft picks and then traded a bunch of them, but we ended up with 7. They picked in the first round. They picked. I still need to learn how to pronounce his name. Felix Andu. I forget how to. Everyone calls him Azuma. Everyone calls him FAU now in Kansas City, so I'm just going to stick with that.
Yeah.
So I thought they were going to pick him because he's from K-State.
Yeah.
And Kansas City was hosting the draft, so I thought they would pick a local guy. And he's an edge, so he kind of filled a need that we needed. So I was okay with that pick because we lost Frank Clark, and then Chris Jones is holding out, so it's kind of even more important now, retrospectively.
Sure.
Because we don't know how that situation is going to turn out. And then the free agent we got from the 49ers, got suspended for the 6 games, who's also another defensive lineman. So our pass rush is probably our biggest question mark going into the season. One of them.
Yeah.
And
you might have to start blitzing Sky more.
Exactly. So it was a good pick, I think. And then second round, we got, wide receiver, Rashee Rice.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm not going to say it, but I think he's got a lot of potential. He could probably be the best wide receiver with the last name Rice, in my opinion.
Wow. Okay.
We needed a wide receiver.
Stop the cap.
We needed a wide receiver, so that was a good pick. He's fine. We'll see how he turns out. Got an offensive tackle, got a safety. I think the biggest issue with our draft is that we we picked a few players that we don't really have spots for. We picked like a linebacker and a cornerback, and we'd have nowhere to really use them because we've already got all those starters filled and even backups for those starters filled. So, but overall, I think it was a good draft.
Cool. Yeah, Nick Jones, I remember being a bigger, like he's one of those like 6'3", 210 type cornerbacks, like a bigger cornerback, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so I mean, I think they'll see like, oh, well, his size, can we just like figure out like use him just in like specific circumstances, maybe. Right. But we'll see.
Yeah, very nice. So New England had, I think it was 11 draft picks, and we ended up with 12 draft people. So wow. I was gonna say I think this is the year that the streak of the undrafted free agents making the team was gonna go away because we just had made so many picks. I actually got in an argument with a guy on watching one of these live streams, and he was like, "Why didn't we like only pick up 3 or 4 undrafted free agents?" I was like, because there was only 4 spots. He's like, but we always sign more. And I was like, if there's only 4 spots to sign them, then that's it. He's like, but we usually sign more. I'm like, what do you mean? We can't have 120 players. I'm sorry. Like, this isn't college. But yeah, so the Patriots draft was a roller coaster, let me tell you. Watching it live was man, it was rough. Christian Gonzalez, my dream pick, and we traded down for him. And then we got a cornerback, I think the best cornerback in the draft, but we'll let the field do the talking. Of somebody who should have been in the first round, we got Keon White, which is a defensive end from Georgia Tech. And right now, the preseason MVP as of August 17th for the Patriots. Marte Mapu, who was Daniel Jeremiah's draft crush, his favorite draft pick in the entire draft, he said. I've never heard of him. I was not happy because there was tight ends there that I wanted. There was tackles there I wanted. But after hearing the stories at a camp, I don't care. He's a beast and he's got great hair. Then the
most important quality.
Yeah. So of course, I mean, you, as a Chiefs fan, you ought to know. I mean, but between Mahomes, and Kelsey, you gotta have the top looking fly.
Yeah, you have to, because how else are they going to get that Head and Shoulders sponsorship?
That's true. That's true. That's very true. And then our next 4 picks were interior linemen and trading up for a kicker. Which I was happy about the kicker, but it drove me nuts that to have 3 offensive linemen get picked. But one of them happened to be one of the guys I picked in my draft, so not bad. Then we drafted Kayshon Boutte, who was supposed to be a first round pick, but fell out of favor in LSU and then got hurt and then ran the 40 with a broken ankle and wondered why he went in the 6th round. Then we drafted a punter, and then I nailed Demario Douglas at 210. And then we drafted 2 corners, one from Jackson State, the other one from Michigan State. Both of them kind of bigger guys, 6'2", 6'3", really fast. Special teams guy that with some developmental upside. But that's just kind of the overview. Starting with... I've got it pulled up here, so let me pull it up. Let's start with LB here. So LB had, in his mock draft, he had CJ Stroud at number 1. He had Jahmyr Gibbs at 39. Henry To'oTo'o, linebacker, at 93. He had a slot corner out of Stanford at 114. Zach Kuntz, that didn't end up going till like the 7th round because there was like rumors that he got hurt or something, but now he's catching passes from Aaron Rodgers, and he's on Hard Knocks, so I don't think he's hurting too bad. Dylan Horton from TCU, and then Raheem Jarrett, a wide receiver, in I think that's the 5th round. I don't remember where Jarrett went, but I think that was somewhere around where he ended up going. He might have been even actually a little higher than that. So looking at what you did draft as your mock draft versus what you ended up getting, how satisfied are you with what the people who actually have the power to make these decisions did, LB, or should they have hired you because they royally screwed up?
Well, I have no room to talk, seeing as I went a whopping 0% on the draft. However,
that's not entirely true. That's not entirely true. You had them taking a quarterback first round, and they took a quarterback. Sure. So I mean, they drafted a wide receiver, like you said, but I mean, just not where you had them going with it. And that sort of thing. So it wasn't complete miss. You were still in the ballpark. I mean, nobody had Jahmyr Gibbs going the top 15. So I mean, it's just how it goes.
And to the Lions, like
to be fair, he's going to be freaking amazing on the Lions. I have him going off. But anyways, sorry. Go ahead, Ali.
Oh yeah, I mean, I could have gotten the easy pick, obviously taking Bryce Young number 1 in the mock draft. But that'd make too much sense, and I can't do that.
Can't allow that.
I had to shoot from the hip, even though I knew there was no chance that CJ Stroud was going to go number 1. So that's kind of funny. But no, man, I think they'll be all right. The biggest issue, obviously, I think that still is out there is whether the offensive line can protect Bryce. And we'll get into those preseason games in a bit, but given that he was a number 1 overall pick, and then we gave away so much for him, he's got to pan out. Otherwise, I'm not sure what this franchise is going to do. I mean, we haven't had a franchise quarterback since Cam, and that was basically the 2018 season, the Monday night game when he got his shoulder busted up in Pittsburgh. So Carolina has been hurt. So hopefully we can prevent that and take care of our guy. So, but yeah, I think the Jonathan Mingo pick in the second round is going to be great if we can get him on the field.
Sure.
He's a bigger guy.
Yeah.
And I think that'll add some weapons to the team since we let go of DJ and Christian McCaffrey. So hopefully they have enough guys to replace the productivity that DJ gave us and Christian gave us with multiple guys instead of having 2. Hopefully we can replace them with the 5 or 6 guys that we have on the roster now.
Sure.
In terms of productivity.
Yeah.
Because you can't replace a Christian McCaffrey or DJ Moore. You just
can't do it.
Franchise guys. So hopefully we can replace them in other ways. Getting production from all of our weapons instead of just 1 or 2 guys. And I think that'll help. And if Mingo can get on the field, I mean, his tape from Ole Miss speaks for itself. He's a big guy, can separate, physical. So I really like that pick. And then, after that second round, it's kind of a crapshoot in terms of who's going to pan out, who's not going to.
Sure.
So those, you just kind of have to wait and see. And it being only one preseason game, and so far it's hard to, kind of give a good answer one way or another on those guys. So it's just kind of a wait and see approach right now.
For sure. Yeah, I forgot that you guys got Jamie Robinson in the 5th round. Like, some people had him going as high as the 2nd round. So that could be low key one of the better steals of the draft. He's kind of an enforcer. He's athletic. He's all over the field, and he's a big guy. You know what I'm saying? You guys kind of have a lot of the smaller, like, speedy safeties, which are important, but you also need an enforcer. And other than some of your edge guys, I can't really think of anybody on your defense that's like, wow, I'm really terrified of getting hit by this guy. Like, Jamie Robinson is that guy. So if he could kind of start popping off in that capacity, that'd be awesome for you guys. So LB, if you were going to give a grade on what the Panthers did, now they didn't have near the capital that some of these other teams did. But based on what the capital they had and what you kind of hoped that they would take, what if you were going to give them a grade, what would be the grade you give them?
I think, to be fair, probably like a solid B, just going after one game. obviously the first preseason game, they got smoked 27-0. So that's not ideal at all. But again, it's a preseason game. You're getting guys used to the NFL speed.
Yeah.
However, Bryce looked good. He was able to sit in the pocket, take some shots.
I thought he did
pop
too.
back up. So that's encouraging.
Yeah.
I think it was like 4 of 6. Distributed the ball like 4 of the 5 guys he targeted. So he was dishing it out, obviously similar to what he did at Alabama. Getting everybody involved, getting everybody touches. So that's encouraging. I think as the preseason goes on and they get more reps, they kind of stir up who's going to be starting in what positions, especially the offensive line. Because I think they gave up 5 sacks in the first preseason game. So that's obviously, they're going to happen. It's preseason, but you don't want your quarterback getting sacked 5 times. And that wasn't Bryce Young getting sacked 5 times because he didn't play
right
the whole game and stuff. But still, that's not encouraging.
No.
But on paper, I would say, to be fair, the potential's there. To try to be objective and not be a fair weather fan. I think a B minus range, just given what we've got so far. It's not obviously not a total loss,
right?
It's way too early
to tell for sure
to say, but I think the potential's there, and obviously we'll see as the preseason progresses, and then we move into the regular season and see how these guys help shape the roster and whether they're in starting roles or in backups and playing meaningful reps.
Yeah, that's awesome. So according to LB, give them an 83 B/B minus.
Yep.
Wonderful.
I think that's about as fair as you can get right now.
Heck yeah.
Depending on what type of mood you're in. If you're a pessimistic person, you might be, oh my gosh, the fall sky's falling, but
sure.
It's so early. Like, it's still August. We got a lot of ways to go, a lot more learning and just, gelling. The team's got to gel.
For sure. All right. Hound, how do you think the Chiefs did?
So I think the one word to describe the Chiefs draft is safe.
Yes.
It was a very safe draft. They didn't trade up very far. Like, they did do some trades, obviously, but they would move up like 10 picks or 15 picks in the later rounds. And like, we picked a defensive end from K-State, which I was pretty confident they were probably going to pick. And he's, pretty safe pick. We picked a wide receiver in the second round.
Mm-hmm.
And all the other picks that we, chose, like some of them, like, I can't really point to a single pick that the Chiefs made and say that's a bad pick. Like, that was out of nowhere. But I think the main issue with it is that we went in with, I believe, 10 picks. I believe it was 10 picks.
Yeah. And
we kept a lot of our players from the year before. Like, we've lost, some, but basically the same players.
Sure.
And you just won the Super Bowl. So this is a draft where you could have, have some risks,
That's interesting.
Trade up.
Okay.
Just, try to swing and get even a big, potential player.
Right.
You don't need, 6 more average players on this team.
That's fair.
You don't. We don't really have the space anyways for a lot of these guys. Except for maybe offensive line. You can always use more players. You just can.
Yeah.
And then defensive line, as it's turned out, it looks like we might need the people that we've drafted.
They're a dime a dozen, though. There's going to be people that are going to be cutting starting guys for other teams later, so you should be fine.
Oh, yeah. No, and I mean, and we did pick up in free agency, a defensive tackle, I believe, or defensive end from the 49ers. And if I remember right, I haven't looked recently, but there's still guys from like last season that we had who did okay, and they haven't signed with other teams yet, so we might re-sign them too.
Mm-hmm.
But, and that's assuming if Chris Jones doesn't, get signed soon.
Right.
But because if he gets signed soon, then you're fine.
Yeah.
Like your pass rush is going to be fine.
Yeah.
But so overall, I would rank it as a B minus because I don't think there was anything wrong with it. But I think situationally, the front office should have taken more risks. Is really how I would perceive it.
Yeah. I mean, if you kind of look at the way that you attacked the mock draft, you took Dalton Kincaid in the first round. Now, you would have, he got drafted a few spots ahead of you guys, so you would have had to trade up to get him. But that's exactly what you're saying, is that they should have taken that shot if they, if they felt like he could be somebody to supplement like Kelsey now, and then eventually replace him when the time comes. You had them taking an edge guy, in the second round instead of them taking the guy in the first round. With Derek Hall, you had them taking Tank Dell, which I watched the preseason game because I'm a Pats fan, so I had to watch him do what he did to the New England secondary. But most of the people he did that to aren't going to be on our team, so I really don't care. But good for him that he took care of some 4th-string cornerbacks. Like, I'm not worried about Darius Randall, covering freaking, AJ Brown week 1. That's not going to be his job. You got
it was just a safe draft.
Yeah,
it was just a safe draft, and I don't think you needed it.
Yeah,
you didn't really need it.
Yeah, and you got actually quite a bit right about it too. Other than you couldn't, obviously nobody's going to get it completely right, but you took a late cornerback like they did. You took an early edge like they did. I think they took a tackle, right, at some point. I'm not mistaken.
They did. They took
Wanye Morris, who was on the other side of who I wanted, which was Anton Harrison, who I also heard has been tearing it up in the camp that I forget what team he's on, but I heard he's been playing well, which blows, but whatever. So yeah, I mean, you kind of got it, like, and you had him taking it in I think that's early 4th round at 122s, and they took it in the 3rd round. So I mean, you guys, really did a pretty decent job, kind of predicting what ends up happening. I mean, I think the other side of what you're saying is, if you don't have a lot of places available, the other way you can go about this is like, okay, we feel like our team is pretty set. We can add a few players here and there, but if you really feel like, man, I don't feel like we need to add much, you can either do what you said, which is be aggressive, or you can push it off to next year. And everything I'm hearing about next year's draft is going to be historic, with the quarterbacks and wide receivers and tight ends that are going to be available next year. And I hate to say it right now, if you took away Travis Kelce, I'm not scared of your offense, honestly. Like, Patrick Mahomes is a game changer, don't get me wrong, but I'm not scared of Sky Moore. I'm not scared of MVS. If Kadarius Toney does Kadarius Toney things like college Kadarius Toney, then maybe we're talking a little differently here. But you don't have Juju anymore. Now, this Rashee Rice guy is good. I think he'll be good, but it takes some time. Even and he's not really a burner. He's kind of just like, he's like the most average wide receiver I can think of. He's like 6'2". He's got like a 4.5 or a high 4.4 or something like that. He runs decent routes. So he's just like, he does everything like good, which is kind of what Juju did. So, I mean, if that's what you're looking to replace, then that's a good guy to do it with. But there's people that could use a good wide receiver, but I feel like your team would be better off if they would have tried to find somebody that, I don't know, had the potential to be a game changer. Like you took Trey Palmer here at 166 in your mock draft, and he was the fastest wide receiver at the draft this year. Like, to me, that's taking a risk that suits what your offense wants to be. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So now, I don't have an issue, again, with the way that you guys drafted either. I think it's kind of hype that you guys took a Kansas State guy in the 1st round while the draft was happening in your state. Like, that's pretty hype.
Well, and what's cool is that players not only went to K-State, but grew up in Kansas City.
Oh, so I mean, just
one of the cities near it.
Homegrown all the way. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
so,
awesome.
I mean, I'm happy for him. I'm not angry, but we probably could have picked him in the 2nd round if we, played our cards right.
Maybe. I mean, it's all, you don't know.
All water under the bridge.
Yeah. It's all about being what happens on the field now, right?
Yep.
Okay. So I kind of preface this a little bit with mine. The big thing for me is obviously that I absolutely nailed 210 with Demario Douglas. Like, come on, that's freaking hype.
Crazy.
So, and what's even better is that people, and like Boston media, right? We're the downers when we're not winning. Like, winning a championship is the average thing to do. Like with any sports media, Boston sports media, whereas the Celtics or the Bruins or the Red Sox or the Pats, it's all, if we didn't win a championship that year, then it was a failed season. You could have had, even the Cam year when like our best player was our center, and that's not an exaggeration. It's exactly what it was. Like, everybody expected us to make a playoff run, and we won 6 games. And I'm like, what do you want from us, honestly? So I felt like I did really well because I got Demario Douglas exactly right. I got Antonio Mafi later, but he did end up on the Patriots. I got right that we're taking a kicker and a punter, which we did. My dream pick happened, which obviously is really hype as well. Christian Gonzalez. What else here? I was a little surprised we went 3 defensive players back to back to back in the first 3 rounds. And I was not particularly pleased that we didn't get a bona fide tackle in the mid rounds, because they went offensive line in the middle and then they chose not to take a tackle. Now they took one of the guards and they've been putting him at right tackle, and I've heard he struggled like a lot. And from what I could tell on the while watching the preseason game, that checks out. So it's frustrating that they have to deal with that, but kind of like LB was saying, there's kind of a shortage of good offensive line play in the NFL just in general. Like, it's not as bad now, but there was a couple years ago, there was this big like corner like issue where there wasn't a lot of corners that are just like really solid, not necessarily lockdown corners, but like every team had maybe one guy that's like, okay, he's a good player. And then everybody else was kind of trash, except if you were the Patriots, who had 3 number ones. It was like, it just crazy that it worked out that way. But now it's just like, unless, even starting lineups for some of these teams are abysmal. Now New England is fortunate to have, some really good players at 3 of the spots, a potentially really, really good player at the left tackle if Trent Brown would stop eating so much cake. And then we can work around the right tackle. Like the right tackle is by far the biggest issue on our offense right now. But it's just one of those things where, if you can just get competent play, we can work around it.
Okay.
So all in all, Marvin Mims was my draft crush. But and then he went I think he went 3 picks after I had him going, or 3 picks before. Like, he was in the 60s, but he just didn't go to New England. He went to the Broncos, which low-key made me excited. I was like, oh, that means Jared Judy's coming to New England because they don't need him anymore. And I was like, no, I guess not. Sean Payton wants weapons. I get it,
Yeah.
But I feel like I'm being a homer about it based on what I'm hearing in camp and stuff. But I got to give him a B+. Like, I feel like they really did well. I mean, absolutely screwing the Jets in the first round out of getting a tackle, and which actually hits harder now because Mekhi Becton's struggling to stay healthy. So they went from potentially having 2 like Pro Bowl caliber tackles, so now they might have 0, which that's, I'm sure, even though Aaron Rodgers says it's fine, it's not, and we all know it's not. Yeah, and then getting a guy that should be in the first round in the second round, and then getting some, analyst draft crush. We can just, talk, sure, they got some interior guys that's cool or whatever. They'll make the team maybe. And then getting my favorite player in the draft, which is Demario Douglas. I can't really feel much better about it other than if maybe we drafted a tight end or a tackle or something that like is working out. When you got 12 picks, like not all of them are going to hit, Yeah. But it seems like there's more, as of right now, it seems like there's a tendency to think that there's more hits than misses. And it also is encouraging to hear that the people that were drafted high are doing things that people drafted high should do, which has not always been the case in New England. Nikhil Harry. It's nice to see that the draft portion of our organization is back, because it has been MIA for almost, like, it's like they drafted Devin McCourty and Julian Edelman and then decided that they weren't going to really care about the draft for the next 10 years. So I'm glad that they are paying somebody to pay attention nowadays. So so I give him a B+. So we'll give him a golf clap for that. One like and then one dislike about your team's draft, starting with LB.
Obviously taking Bryce Young number 1 overall, you gotta like that. Even though, I wasn't the, highest on him. It was never, like I said earlier, it was never a talent issue. So if the guy can stay healthy and we can keep him upright, I think he's going to be a baller for us. So I love that. I think the Jonathan Mingo pick is great. I really like having another guy that we can split out wide and just let him go play ball. He's 6'2", 220 pounds. So he's going to be bigger than your average NFL corner, which is nice. And I think, like I said, if we can get him involved with, Hayden Hurst at the tight end spot and Thielen, we can move him around. And then, of course, we have Terrence Marshall and Chenault. I think we've got
DJ
and of
Chark,
course,
too.
Sanders. Yeah, yep, and Chark. I think we've got enough playmakers to have a dangerous offense. Whether that turns out that way or not, yet to be seen.
Right.
Obviously, we've scored a whopping 0 points in the preseason. But no, man, I think Bryce Young and Jonathan Mingo, if they can do what they did in college and replicate that in the NFL, I think we'll be just fine. And I think we'll be in good hands. And then we can play complementary football, which the beginning part of last season, our defense really stepped up and carried us. And then, you can only do that for so long when you keep getting put in bad situations. So hopefully, Bryce can move the ball. We can play the field position game. We can distribute it, and we don't have to rely on 1 or 2 guys. So we can really run our offense and get everybody involved. And, Bryce did that at Alabama. He spread the ball around. So hopefully he'll do that in Carolina, and we'll hopefully, be really competitive in this division that's seemingly wide open,
Yeah.
But yeah, I like what they did. We only took 5 guys in the draft. So like you're saying with the Patriots, they had 11 or 12. You have obviously greater odds of you getting a guy and having an impact right away. In your draft, we have, 5 chances at a guy
Right.
panning out. And hopefully our guy is, Bryce Young panning out at 1 overall. So if like I said, if that happens, it's water under the bridge. We'll be great. We'll be in good hands. You got to have a quarterback. And if he can be our guy, I think we'll be great.
Excellent. So what's one thing you dislike about the Panthers draft?
It would have had to have been trading away DJ, which obviously
That's
you're
fair.
kind of in a rock and a hard place because you need to go get a quarterback. And being at number 9 overall, you only had a certain amount of leverage.
Right.
And we didn't have that many picks to offer. So I think that's not necessarily a draft issue, but it led into the draft.
Yeah.
And I was super high on that guy. I think he's, the numbers speak for himself.
For sure.
He was a quiet guy in terms of like media attention and whatnot and hype around him, but the dude just performed. So I wasn't happy about that. So yeah, I would say draft wise, trading out a 9 is fine, but giving up DJ to do so, hopefully it doesn't hurt us. And like I said, if Price pans out and can ball, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Bygones will be bygones, but if it doesn't, then I think we'll be like, I think the fan base will, they're already being impatient, and rightfully so. It's been a while since they've played meaningful football, and now you do this and you trade away guys who were productive for you. I think that'll be an issue. Hopefully it doesn't get to that point, but I'd say, yeah, trading away DJ to get from 9 to 1 is probably the biggest dislike in terms of the draft process and everything like that they did this offseason.
Yeah, I feel that. No, I would definitely agree with you. And then the first play from scrimmage for the Bears was a screen to him that he took to the house, which I'm sure that didn't feel great. By the way, anybody who says Justin Fields is the man because he threw 2 screen passes for touchdowns, give me a break. Please, just chill. Hound, one thing you like, one thing you dislike about the draft.
Okay, so I know how I said, we should have traded up in the first round, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I did, I'll just go back to it. I did like the Felix pick, FAU.
Yeah.
You just gotta love this story. Because, drafted first round from K-State in Kansas City in front of all the fans. But he was born literally in Kansas City, Missouri. And he went to high school 15 miles away from Arrowhead Stadium. And that was Kansas City Chiefs, where it's always his favorite team. And, him being able to play for the team that he grew up watching and always wanted to play for is a great thing. And having his defensive coordinator be Steve Spagnuolo, who's really good at developing defensive ends, I think will be great for him.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope he does great. I hope he does great.
For sure. So what's one thing you dislike?
We talked about the whole, playing it,
safe. Yeah.
Too safe. But I'll say the one thing I'll say I didn't really like is our linebacker draft pick in the 5th round. It's literally, it's basically a throwaway pick in the 5th round for us, because we've got 4 linebackers already that we're very comfortable with. We have, guys that, they've been with the Chiefs for a while, except Tranquil, who we just got from the Chargers, who will be a nice linebacker to have.
Sure. But
the reason we picked BJ Thompson is just because he's tall. So we picked BJ Thompson.
He's 6'6",
and that's about
right?
it. Yeah, he's 6'6", and that's kind of the only reason we picked him. And again, it's like he's just going to be sitting on the bench a lot.
Yeah.
And you might as well have just used these draft picks to get better draft capital, either in a, next year's draft by trading them away, or, trading up.
Yeah.
Because again, you don't have these spots. It goes to the safety pick, but I think that one's the one that irks me the most.
Sure.
Because we've actually got a lot of bodies already comfortably in that linebacker spot. So
yeah, I feel that. And it's not just that he's 6'6", it's that he's 6'6", 240. So he's even light, even if he's a little light, even if he was like 6'3", which is kind of more ideal. Man, he's going to look more like a safety than I don't know about that. I agree with you that I never even picked that up. That's a head scratch. Yeah. If he pans out, he pans out, and that's great, Yeah,
but, if he does good, he does good. It's just going to be hard for him to get the opportunities to.
And he's listed as an edge. He's listed as an edge too, at least on the website I'm looking at. Which happens to be.
I think he played outside.
Yeah. so that would mean
he'll already be competing with AFU.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, he's going to be trying to get around tackles, right? And 6'6", that's good. You need to having that size is good, but being 6'6", 240, you're not blowing anybody off the ball with that, So if I see man's 6'6", 240 on my left tackle side, I'm running stretch to his side every play until they either take him out or he proves to me that he can stop it, which he won't. So,
Yeah,
I definitely agree with you. For me, what I liked about the draft, there's a lot to like that I like, but just the first round finagling of trading down, getting an extra pick, getting the Jets out of what they would have picked, and then taking the guy that we wanted anyways. The Christian Gonzalez shenanigans was the absolute masterclass on how to manipulate a draft board to not only your advantage, but to the disadvantage of teams that you're going to have to play multiple times over the next couple years. So I thought that was the thing I liked the most. And obviously hearing people say that, GM Belichick is back is good to hear. The thing that I dislike, taking 3 interior guys without taking an offensive tackle. That really hurts to me. Like, I get what they're trying to do. What they're trying to do is Mac is a pocket quarterback, and the biggest thing for a pocket quarterback is they need to be able to step up. So if you reinforce the interior, that's where he needs to be able to step up and be able to actually create that pocket. If you have subpar tackles, all they really need to do is just make sure they don't get beat inside. They can have their edge rushers loop around, and then the guy can step up in the way that New England typically runs offense, worth not including last year. It's kind of a quick, 5 steps, look, read 1, read 2, ball out, in 2.5 to 3 seconds. So, and that's too much time, not enough time for a edge rusher to loop around and then get basically tackle the quarterback from behind. So I get it, but after hearing all the woes and cries and everything from what I'm hearing from joint practices with the Packers, and then what we were hearing when they were going up against themselves in Foxborough over the past couple weeks, it just really hurts to think, man, we might be starting an offensive tackle that wouldn't make a lot of teams, in the next, on week 1 against one of the best defensive fronts in the league in the Eagles. So that's definitely my least favorite part of this draft. And they had their shots to take them, especially like in the 3rd round. But would I change the guy that they got in the 3rd round? Probably not. But I think the early 4th round, they had opportunities to get people like DeJuan Jones and that sort of thing, and they decided not to. That I think it's a little hubris, but that's what I don't like about it. Last thing we'll say, and then we'll let the good people get back to their days, is our favorite pick of the draft. I have a feeling I know LB's, but lay it on us, LB. Let me hear why Bryce Young is your favorite pick of the draft.
Well, if he's any resemblance of who the player he was at Alabama was in the NFL, we got our guy.
Right.
And you got to love that. It's just a matter of, one, can he handle it at the NFL level, which I think he can. I think he's very intelligent, high football IQ. He's got all the intangibles. His skill set, you can match him up with just about anybody, I think, in terms of his skill set and what he can do. And so if that's the case and he translates to the NFL, I think we got our dude, and he could be there for the next 10 plus years. And if we, build the team the right way that we can sustain long-term success, I think you can see a run like we made with Cam. Because if you have your guy, that immediately makes you competitive. It doesn't matter whether your team is trash. If you got a stud quarterback, he can right a lot of wrongs.
Sure.
So hopefully that's the case. Hopefully he stays healthy along with the rest of our team. We've had the injury bug, especially on the defensive side of the ball, the last couple of seasons. But yeah, man, I hope he stays healthy and we can protect him. And if that's the case, I think the sky's the limit for the kid.
For sure. I like the pick, man. I mean, I didn't, I was there, with you when they drafted him, and I wasn't too enamored with how tall he was. I mean, they put him next to Zay Flowers, and I mean, it wasn't like he hulked over Zay Flowers like you would want your quarterback to. But yeah, caveat to him staying healthy, he looks like a baller. So let's hope he stays that way. Exactly. Hound, what's your favorite pick out of this draft?
My favorite pick is that Will Levis went number 33 overall because that meant my bold prediction was correct.
Yeah, you had the most correct bold prediction for sure. I whiffed on that one. I had 2 Oklahoma guys going to New England, and they didn't even grab one.
No. I mean, I was excited about that because it proved. I mean, I still don't have very much confidence in Will Levis.
No,
but you never know. You never know with quarterbacks, obviously.
Right.
But
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, not much confidence with him. And again, I've always said it. There's always one quarterback that drops super low in a draft, and they have like the sad angle of them in the in the green room or whatever.
Yeah.
What I thought was very funny with Will Levis is he didn't show up for day 2. Like he was there like at the draft for day 1, didn't get picked, and he didn't show up for he just went home.
Yeah, and then he almost was like excited, like, oh my gosh, like I actually got picked. It was like, oh, if I'm not a first rounder, then I'm not getting drafted at all.
Which, I mean, in all honesty, if I was the Titans in that scenario, do you want to pick him? Like that would have been kind of a red flag for me in a way. I don't know.
I don't know. He's not making NFL money right now, so he may not have been able to pay for a hotel.
Sure, but Kansas City prices aren't that expensive.
Did you see how many people were at that?
Oh, there was a lot of people there, but they all drove in. They're all local people.
Yeah, not a single one of them rented a hotel room.
Nope.
That's funny. That's great, though. I love that.
I mean, yeah, but we'll see how it goes. I just think that was very funny.
Oh, for sure.
Because it reminded me of Johnny Manziel when he dropped, very far compared to what people thought.
Yeah,
and it's just very funny.
Yeah.
Perhaps the most entertaining part of the draft was seeing all the people around Will Levis that kept changing. It's like, oh, that's a whole new person right there. It's like, where did they come from?
Oh, that's great. Yeah. My favorite my favorite moment of the draft was there was this guy, it was day 3, it was like the 6th round, like, there's not very many people there left. And this guy that came up with like a wrestling championship belt decked to the nines in Falcons attire. And he announced the pick. I don't remember who it was or anything like that. And I assumed because of what was said that it was a Patriots fan. I found out later it was a Saints fan. The man announced the pick, and then turned and then took 3 steps away from the podium. And then you hear over the mic, somebody yell 28-3. The guy stopped, turned around, walked back, dead-eyed the guy that said it and says, yeah, we haven't heard that one before, and then walked off. That is the freaking best moment. And Rich Eisen lost his mind. He's like, that is the best thing ever. And then later the next week, Rich Eisen found the guy and got him on his radio show. They got him to talk on the radio show. It was awesome. All right, my favorite player that we drafted, it's got to be Papa Shada, Demario Douglas, man. Listen, I'm a Florida boy. Douglas is a Florida boy. I hate to say it. I'm a simp for Liberty University. I think it's a great school. I'm not going to give my reasons why I think that is. Let's just say I have some insider information, wink, wink. I've met him and I've watched him play, and he's an absolute baller. I didn't know this, but him and Mac Jones actually lived 15 minutes from each other. So it's just everything about him I just absolutely love. I've got so many like not so distant connections to him. I've met him in person. He's a good dude. And I'm so excited that New England finally has a slot receiver that runs below a 4.7. I'm just so thankful. Like, don't get me wrong, I absolutely loved having Jacoby Myers on the team. The dude was an absolute warrior, but he shouldn't be your number one. He just shouldn't, and I think he's going to fit great up in Raiderland if Garoppolo can stop throwing to the wrong team. Douglas was definitely my favorite part of this draft. Especially when they drafted him too, because it was right after they drafted all the offensive linemen. They drafted Kayshon Boutte, who I was like, well, he's not making the team because he's not going to be able to behave himself. And then we drafted the punter, and then we drafted DeMario, and it was like, finally we get somebody that I like. I can get excited about. But I'm thinking DeMario Douglas, Papa Shada is going to be the steal of the draft here. And like LB says, Patriots have done it again.
Yes, they have. Yeah. Never ceased to amaze me.